Good evening, friends. As you settle into your cozy space, whether it's under soft blankets or curled up by the window with the night sky in view, let's take a deep breath together. Feel the weight of the world slip away as you sink deeper into the present moment, allowing the comforting embrace of this time to fill your senses. Let the quiet of the evening settle in. The world outside, full of noise and rush, fades away, and we are left with nothing but the gentle flow of a story that takes us far back in time. Tonight, we start with a very soft whisper of history, a quiet, sometimes overlooked beginning. Imagine yourself stepping into the year 1843, a time when the streets of Europe were alive with change, yet still whispered with the echoes of older, simpler days. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, and everything felt like it was moving faster than ever. People were working long hours in noisy factories, creating products and making things that seemed to stretch endlessly in the mind. But amid this whirlwind of progress, a young man was thinking quietly in the corner of a room, far removed from the factories and the bustle outside. His name was Karl Marx. Picture it. You're in a small, warm study, dimly lit by a flickering candle. The scent of burning wax fills the room, and the soft crackling of the fire offers a rhythmic, comforting sound. Marx sits at an old, worn desk, the papers in front of him scattered like a small mountain of thoughts. His quill pen moves steadily across the page, though his mind is restless, almost like the fire flickering beside him. The world around him is still. Outside the window, the night air is crisp, and you can almost feel the coolness of it drifting in. The streets are silent now, with only the occasional clip-clop of a horse's hooves echoing in the distance. Inside, Marx pauses and looks out the window for a moment, deep in thought. He stares at the flickering shadows on the wall, perhaps wondering if the world could ever be different. Could the future be shaped in a way that was more just, more balanced, more fair? But it wasn't just a dream, no. It was more of a nagging question, one that he had been wrestling with for a long time. Why did people, workers, laborers, continue to toil for hours on end, creating goods they would never truly own, working in conditions that seemed designed to break them, while a select few grew rich from their efforts? This question gnawed at him, a constant itch in the back of his mind. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine you're in his shoes, feeling this heavy burden of thought. The fire crackles, the candle flickers, and the faint hum of the outside world seems to come closer. But there's no distraction. The room is quiet, save for the sound of his pen scratching against paper. You can almost hear him thinking aloud. Why, he wonders, do people keep doing this? It's not just about economics, Marx realizes. It's about power, control, the way society has been built so that a few have more than enough, while the many scrape by with only what's left behind. But then there's something even more curious. This system, as flawed as it is, seems to continue because people accept it. The more he writes, the clearer the shape of his thoughts becomes. Marx starts to see the world through a lens that feels almost like a puzzle. The puzzle pieces seem to fit one by one until they form the picture of a different world. A world where things aren't stacked in favor of the rich few, but where they are shared equally. A world where, in his words, the workers could finally take control of the means of production, where instead of only a few having the power to make decisions, everyone could be part of that process. At this point, Marx is still a relatively unknown figure. He's not yet the revolutionary leader we remember today. He's just a thinker, a man quietly sitting in his study, contemplating what many would consider impossible. Imagine being there, in that still room with him, as his thoughts unfold and grow. Perhaps, as you listen to the crackling of the fire, you start to sense that this might be the start of something much bigger than Marx himself could even comprehend. Yet, even with this growing idea, he isn't entirely sure what will come of it. Like many great ideas, it starts small, so small in fact, that it almost seems too simple, too unassuming. But there's a truth hiding in that simplicity. The idea that all people deserve to share in the wealth they create, that no one person should own everything, while others have nothing. Can you feel that thought linger in the air, almost like a soft whisper? The idea that perhaps the world, as it is, might not be the best it could be. The idea that maybe, just maybe, there's a better way to live. This moment, small and quiet as it is the seed of an idea that will grow to shape entire nations, to stir revolutions, and to ignite fires in the hearts of millions. But for now, in this room, it's still just a quiet thought. Marx continues to write, and we're left with the soft, rhythmic sound of his pen against paper, the crackling of the fire, and the stillness of the night outside. There is no grand parade, no loud proclamations, only the slow, steady tick of time, the soft hum of progress, even when it seems so far away. Now, take a deep breath again, friends. Feel the weight of the moment settle into your mind and heart. Let it carry you softly into the next part of the story. Because, as we leave this small study behind, we'll move forward, together, into the next quiet chapter of history, where the thoughts of one man will begin to ripple through the world in ways no one could have imagined. And as we leave that warm study behind, let your mind wander with me as we head towards the next part of this unfolding story. Good evening again, friends. Let's settle in, shall we? Imagine the quiet stillness of the night wrapping itself around you, gently lulling you into a peaceful embrace. The world outside may be bustling with its own set of worries and chaos, but in here, with the warmth of your space, we can slip into the slow-moving currents of history. Take another deep breath and feel your body soften. Relax your muscles one by one. Picture yourself lying down completely at ease. And as we continue, let the quiet flow of this story help guide you into a more restful state. Now, with a soft rustle of papers and the faint smell of ink on parchment, let's drift forward, together, to the year 1848. In this year, Karl Marx is still very much in his quiet study, but the world around him is growing louder, faster. Ideas are swirling, shifting like a fog that refuses to clear. In France, revolutions have begun to take shape. People are rising up, demanding change. In the streets of Paris, there's an energy, a raw force that fills the air. But at this point, it's still a distant rumble. Marx is observing it all from a small, dimly lit room, far from the fiery marches of the revolutionaries. Still, the seed of revolution is growing within him, just as it is growing in the hearts of many others. Now, imagine for a moment the world outside his study. The day is grey, clouds hanging low in the sky, like a soft, heavy blanket. There's a chill in the air, and you can hear the rustling of leaves outside the window. Perhaps a few birds chirping, but no signs of the frenzy that's about to sweep through Europe. Inside, the fire crackles steadily, casting a warm glow on Marx's face. His brow is furrowed as he reads the news coming from Paris. His fingers tap rhythmically on the table, the sound blending with the crackle of the fire. It's a restless sort of tapping, almost like the way your foot might tap when you're deep in thought. He knows that this is not just noise. This is something bigger, something that could change the world, something that, in the right hands, could alter the course of history itself. And slowly, the quiet idea he had been nurturing, this vision of equality, of justice, of a world where the workers could rise above the system, begins to take shape too. Marx, now more determined than ever, knows that he cannot just think about this quietly anymore. His pen moves faster, and the ink on the page becomes a silent shout. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. In the meantime, Marx is not alone. The world around him is starting to stir, and the ideas of the time are buzzing. In his study, he's reading and writing, yes, but he's also talking to others. People are listening to him now. They're starting to take his ideas seriously. Some, perhaps, with a little skepticism. After all, the world he's imagining, where all people share equally in what they create, sounds quite far from the reality they know. Imagine, if you will, someone telling you that tomorrow, everything you knew would change. Your home, your work, your very life would be shared, divided, given freely to all. It's a dizzying thought, isn't it? But for Marx, it makes perfect sense. In fact, the more he reads, the more he writes, the clearer the path ahead seems. He's writing the Communist Manifesto now, in 1848, and in those pages, you can almost feel the pulse of revolution. Every word, every sentence is a spark, and Marx knows that in time, the fire will spread. It's like he's lighting a match in a dark room, watching the flame flicker, then grow stronger with every passing second. And then, of course, there's Engels. Friedrich Engels, the partner in thought, in action, in revolution. Imagine the two of them, sitting in a room, talking late into the night, surrounded by books and papers. Engels, a wealthy businessman turned socialist, was not the kind of person one might expect to join forces with a thinker like Marx. But there they were, forging a bond over their shared vision of a new world. They weren't just talking about theories anymore. They were planning. They were building something with their words, something that could, in time, change the way people lived. As we sit here with them, in the quietude of this room, let's consider how strange it must have been. For Engels, sitting across from Marx, it must have been like trying to see through a fog. At first, the ideas Marx shared must have sounded almost impossible. An entire world built on equality, on fairness, on the idea that everyone should have what they need. It's hard to imagine such a world when everything you've known has been shaped by inequality, by systems of power and wealth that are centuries old. But there they were, Marx and Engels, slowly, methodically, pulling the world into focus with each passing day. Now think about that moment, when you have an idea so big, so wild, so utterly impossible, that you almost can't believe it yourself. The challenge, the real challenge, is to take that idea and turn it into something tangible. That's what Marx and Engels did. They weren't just daydreaming. They were building a framework, a blueprint for something that could, in time, challenge the very foundations of society. In the quiet of the study, Marx writes faster now, as if the words can't leave his mind fast enough. Engels is there too, contributing, editing, helping to shape the ideas. Together, they begin to see how the world could be different, how the working class, those who toil endlessly without ever seeing the fruits of their labor, could rise up and take control of their own destiny. They could have more than just the crumbs from the table. They could have the whole feast. And so, there they sit. The fire crackles in the corner. Outside, the wind begins to pick up, the soft howl of it brushing against the window. But inside, the world feels still, still with the weight of possibility, still with the weight of the idea that could change everything. Now, imagine that feeling, that sensation of being at the edge of something big. It's like standing at the edge of a quiet lake, feeling the cool breeze brush against your face, knowing that the ripples you make could spread out, far and wide. You don't know how far it will go, or what it will become, but you feel it in your bones, that this idea, this change, is coming. The days pass, and the manifesto grows. The pages fill with the words of revolution, the blueprint for a different world. It's no longer just an idea. It's a call to action. It's the spark that will ignite the fire. And Marx and Engels know, in their quiet, determined way, that the world will never be the same again. As we leave this study behind, with its flickering candlelight and the distant howling of the wind outside, let's take a moment to reflect on the power of ideas, the power of a thought written down that can stir the hearts of millions. And as we let this chapter fade into the past, let's look ahead. What comes next? What happens when the ideas we have start to collide with the world outside our door? Take a slow, deep breath, friends. And as you do, let your mind wander into the next chapter of this story, where the spark of revolution begins to catch fire. Good evening, friends. Let's continue on our journey. Feel yourself sinking deeper into the warmth of your surroundings as the world outside fades away. Imagine the soft rustling of the trees outside your window, or the quiet hum of distant traffic, gently muffled by the comfort of your room. Let the quiet of the night envelop you, bringing with it a sense of calm, like a soft blanket wrapping you in comfort and stillness. Take a moment to settle, taking a deep breath in and letting it go slowly. No need to rush. We are here together, drifting gently through time. As we move forward in this story, let's travel now to the winter of 1848, the cold air cutting through the streets of Europe like a fine, chilled blade. Snow falls lightly on the cobblestones, muffling the sound of footsteps. The flicker of lanterns creates soft pools of light, casting long, slow shadows. But in a small, dimly lit room, there's no snow, no chill in the air. Here, in the warmth of the fire, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels are at work. They are deep in the throes of writing the Communist Manifesto. Imagine the scene, a room cluttered with papers, books piled high, and a small fire crackling away in the corner, sending tiny bursts of warmth into the cool evening air. The rhythmic scratch of pen on paper fills the space, as Marx and Engels sit side by side, writing feverishly, exchanging ideas, refining their words. It's a strange feeling, isn't it, to be working on something so important? And yet, at this very moment, the idea seems so small, so contained. No one knows yet how far it will spread. There are no dramatic speeches, no massive crowds gathering to hear what they have to say. It's just two men in a quiet room, writing a manifesto that they believe could change the world. Let's step back for a moment and think about what's happening here. Imagine a time when the very idea of class struggle was still somewhat new, when people were living in an age that seemed to move more slowly, where revolutions were whispers in the dark, not the loud, undeniable truths they would one day become. The world they knew was rigid, structured in ways that had been around for centuries. The rich were rich, the poor were poor. But now, the pages of this manifesto are slowly taking shape, and with every word, Marx and Engels are making a quiet promise to the world. Things could be different. Now, imagine how that thought must have felt. To someone who had lived their entire life in the system, the idea of the working class rising up to claim what was theirs to dismantle the structures of power and wealth must have seemed almost impossible. Yet here, in this quiet room, Marx and Engels are giving birth to that idea. They're writing it down, making it real, turning it into something that anyone could understand. The wind outside howls softly against the window panes. It's a cold wind, but inside it's warm. The fire is steady, the flickering of its light casting shadows across the room. There's a soft hum in the background, like the faint sound of something stirring, something big and powerful beginning to wake. You can almost feel the weight of those first words. They are bold, daring, and new. A spectre is haunting Europe, the manifesto begins. The spectre of communism. And even though it's just one sentence, it feels like an entire world is contained within those words. What does it mean, this spectre? Why does it haunt Europe? And why, after centuries of stability, is something so radical, so new, suddenly becoming impossible to ignore? The two of them, Marx and Engels, are writing not just about a political system, but about the future. They're calling for a world where the workers, the people who do the labor, who make the things that everyone needs, can finally rise above the system that has held them down for so long. Imagine how strange that must have sounded. The very idea that a person could own not just their work, but their future. That they could decide for themselves how they wanted to live. It was almost like a dream, isn't it? And yet, it was a dream that they knew could not simply stay a dream. This manifesto wasn't written to be read and then put aside. No, this was a call to action, an invitation to the workers of the world to come together and fight for something better. As Marx and Engels sat by the fire, writing their words, you can almost imagine the tension between them. They knew how powerful this could be, how it could stir something deep inside people, like a feeling that had been waiting for the right moment to come out. But let's take a step back again, shall we? Think of all the small moments in your life when you've had an idea that you just knew could change something. Maybe it was a solution to a problem at work, or a thought that suddenly made a long-standing issue clear to you. Imagine, if you will, that the idea you had wasn't just yours alone. It was something that could, quite literally, change the way everyone lived. What would you do with that idea? How would you put it into action? Would you keep it quiet? Or would you share it with the world? That's what Marx and Engels were facing. They knew that what they were writing wasn't just some new theory or philosophy. It was a challenge to the way the world had worked for so long. But there's another element to consider here, something we can't forget. They weren't naive. They knew this wouldn't be easy. They knew it would take time. There were powerful forces that would push back, that would fight to keep things the way they were. But there was also something else, something softer, something quieter that might have been even more important. The people, the workers, the ones who toiled day in and day out, barely getting by. It's as if the manifesto itself carried the weight of their lives, their struggles, their suffering, their quiet hopes. This wasn't just an academic exercise for Marx and Engels. This was a way of saying, you deserve more. And as the days passed and the manifesto took shape, they began to feel the weight of the words they had written. They knew it wasn't just ink on paper. This was the beginning of a new world. A world they couldn't fully see yet, but one they were beginning to build with each stroke of the pen. The fire flickers one last time, casting a final warm glow over the room. The pages are almost done now, and the work is complete. There's a strange quiet in the air, a stillness that almost feels like a pause before the storm. This manifesto will travel far. It will inspire. It will provoke. It will change the world. But right now, in this room, it's still just words, still just the soft scratching of pens on paper. And for a moment, it feels like everything is on the edge of something big, something important. Now, as the flames of the fire start to die down, we leave this room behind. Marx and Engels have finished their work, and though we can't see the future yet, we know this moment will ripple through time, touching the lives of millions, changing history in ways no one can fully grasp just yet. Take a deep breath, friends, as we let this chapter pass. Feel the warmth of the fire still lingering in the room with you. And now, as we move forward, we look ahead to the next chapter in this unfolding story, where the ideas of Marx and Engels will soon meet the world in ways that no one could have predicted. Good evening once more, friends. As the night deepens, I invite you to let the stillness of the evening wash over you, as soft as a whisper in the dark. With each breath you take, feel yourself becoming more and more at ease, sinking deeper into the comfort of this moment. The world outside, with all its noise and haste, drifts farther away as we enter a quieter, gentler world. The world of history, where ideas flow like slow-moving rivers, weaving their way through time. Take a deep breath in and slowly release it. Let go of any remaining tension and allow yourself to soften with each passing second. The story we've been following so far has led us to a new place, a place where words, quietly written by two men in a warm, flickering room, begin to ripple outward into a world that is not yet ready to hear them. Now imagine, if you will, that it is 1848. The air is cool, and the streets of Europe seem to hum with a strange energy, like the calm before a storm. People are restless, caught in the grip of change. Revolutions are stirring across the continent, small fires of discontent burning bright but contained, waiting for something to spark them into full flame. And in that year, the Communist Manifesto is about to be unleashed on the world. Picture yourself once again in the small study where Marx and Engels worked, where those revolutionary ideas were carefully written down, with every word chosen, as if it were a tiny spark waiting to set something ablaze. It's as if, even in the stillness of that room, you can feel the energy growing, quiet but undeniable. Now let's take a step back in time, to the moment just before the manifesto is published. The fire crackles softly in the corner, sending faint shadows across the walls. Marx and Engels sit at the desk, leaning over their work. They have finished the manifesto, but there's something in the air, a feeling, a tension, a sense of expectancy. The words are about to leave this small, quiet room and make their way into the wider world. And once they do, things will never be the same again. But let's pause here. For a moment, imagine what it must have felt like for them. They had just created something they knew would change the course of history. Yet here they are, in this room, still just two men. The manifesto is now written. But will it have the impact they hope for? Will it inspire the workers of the world to rise up and demand change? Or will it simply be another forgotten pamphlet in the sea of revolutionary ideas that has come before? It's easy to forget that at this moment, Marx and Engels don't know for sure how their words will land. They've spent countless hours crafting these ideas, discussing them late into the night, testing them against the harsh realities of the world. They know the risks. They understand that by challenging the very fabric of society, they are calling for something that could be deeply unsettling. But even with this knowledge, they still feel compelled to write. There's something inside them, a quiet certainty that no matter what happens, the world needs to hear this message. As you sit with them in this quiet room, imagine the weight of the moment. The pen pauses. They read through the words one last time. The soft flicker of candlelight dances on the pages, and outside, the night seems to hold its breath. The manifesto, which had once only been a collection of thoughts and ideas, now feels solid, tangible. It has become a call to arms, not in the sense of violence, but in the sense of awakening. It is an invitation to see the world in a new light, to imagine a life that doesn't depend on the inequality of the classes. And as the minutes pass, the reality begins to settle in. The manifesto is finished, ready to be shared. The first copies will be printed soon, and then they will be distributed across Europe. Imagine for a moment the first person who holds that manifesto in their hands, the first worker, the first revolutionary, the first person to read the words of Marx and Engels and understand the power behind them. That moment, though small, is the beginning of something monumental. Now, as we leave the study behind, let's take a slow walk through the streets of 1848. The air is cool, crisp, and the sounds of the revolution are faint, but growing louder. There are murmurs in the crowds, whispers of change, but it's still early. The streets are filled with people who are tired, worn down by the system, but they don't yet know the full power of the manifesto that's about to reach them. They are waiting for something to set them in motion. And then, slowly, in the coming weeks and months, the manifesto begins to spread. Like the first stirrings of a breeze, the ideas in the pages start to ripple through the streets. The workers, the farmers, the craftsmen, all those who have long been at the mercy of the upper class, begin to read, to understand, to feel the stirrings of something new inside them. It's a quiet rebellion, one that starts not with shouts or protests, but with a slow, steady spread of ideas. It's like the first drop of rain in a parched desert. The ground begins to soak it in, to absorb it, and soon the dry earth will begin to transform. For Marx and Engels, the feeling of having written something that would touch the lives of millions is both thrilling and terrifying. The manifesto is out there now. There's no going back. They've lit the match, and the spark has taken hold. But what will the fire become? Will it rage like a wildfire, or will it flicker out before it ever truly gets going? And as the days pass, with the manifesto spreading and the revolution growing nearer, let's reflect on this moment. How strange it must have been to be a part of this. Just two men in a room, with the weight of the world pressing down on their shoulders. But even in that small study, with the fire crackling softly, there was a sense that they had already begun to change history. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't filled with grand speeches or marches in the streets. It was just words written on paper. And those words, once spoken, would echo for generations. Now, let your mind gently drift from the room, from the small flickering fire and the soft rustle of pages. The manifesto is out in the world, and with it, the world will change, slowly but surely. The winds of revolution are beginning to stir, and they are not the loud roaring winds you might expect. No, they are the quiet winds, the ones that grow over time, that build slowly. And soon, they will sweep across the world, changing everything in their path. As we move forward into the next chapter, feel the weight of this moment linger with you. The call to arms has been made, and the world is starting to listen. Let's follow the path these words set in motion and see where they take us. Good evening once again, friends. As we step deeper into this story, let yourself sink into the stillness of the moment. Close your eyes if you can, and feel the weight of your body settle into the warmth of your space. The soft hum of the world outside is far away, and here, within this quiet, we can travel through time, slowly, gently. Let the rhythm of your breath guide you, one steady breath after another, as we drift deeper into the pages of history. The year is now 1848, and the world is waking up, though it's still in that half-dream state. An awakening that's slow, deliberate, and filled with anticipation. Picture the streets of Europe, especially Paris. The air is cool, crisp, carrying with it the scent of fresh rain and the faint whisper of change. The cobblestones glisten faintly in the moonlight, reflecting the light of distant lanterns. But the streets are not silent. No, there is a murmur, a quiet rustling, like a soft breeze stirring the leaves. People are whispering to each other, sharing the same secret that's spreading quickly, an idea, a dream, a call to action. The words of the Communist Manifesto have begun to spread. Imagine yourself walking down one of these streets, hearing the quiet conversations as workers pass each other, carrying their burdens but now with something else in their minds, something new, something that's been planted like a tiny seed, and now it's beginning to grow. As the manifesto makes its way into the hands of the workers, the farmers, the common folk, something begins to stir in their hearts. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's a quiet stirring, like the first stretch of the sun's rays after a long, dark night. But it's enough to make them look at their world in a new way. They've been told their whole lives that this is the way things are, that the rich are rich, the poor are poor, and that's just how it is. But the manifesto says something different. It whispers the possibility of a world where that doesn't have to be the case. Now, let's leave the streets of Paris for a moment and return to the study where it all began. The air inside is warmer, the fire crackling softly, its light dancing across the pages of the manifesto. Marx and Engels, once two men sitting together in a quiet room, are now living with the weight of their words. They didn't know, when they first wrote those pages, that they would change the world. But now, as they hear the murmurs of revolution building, they realize the power their ideas have unleashed. They are both thrilled and deeply aware of the weight of it all. The fire in the room feels somehow stronger now, warmer, as if it too is awakening to the truth that something big is coming. Can you imagine how it must have felt to them, sitting there? The manifesto, which had once been just an idea, a few scribbled thoughts, is now alive. It's moving. It's spreading across Europe, reaching the hearts of people who are beginning to feel something deep inside them, something they hadn't felt before, the hope for something better, something fairer. The workers begin to gather in small groups, sharing their dreams of a better future, reading the words that Marx and Engels wrote. There is no immediate outcry, no loud revolution, but there is something building. It's the beginning of something that will spread across the continent like a quiet wave, growing larger with every passing day. There is a gentle excitement in the air, but it's a quiet excitement. It's like the stillness before the first drop of rain falls on dry ground. You can feel it coming, but it hasn't hit yet. But in this stillness, there's a sense of expectancy. The people are waiting for something. They don't know exactly what yet, but they feel that things can be different, that they don't have to keep working for the rich few, that the world they've known for so long, one built on inequality and class divisions, could be replaced by something better, something more just. And as this quiet revolution begins to grow, it begins to spread to other parts of Europe. Vienna, Berlin, Milan. All of them begin to stir with the same whisper of change. Imagine now being in Vienna. The air is heavy with the scent of the coming spring, and there's a quiet buzz in the streets. The people are restless. They are tired, not just physically, but in their hearts. They are ready for change. The manifesto has arrived here too, and the idea of a world where power isn't concentrated in the hands of a few is starting to take root. People gather in small, quiet groups, reading the manifesto aloud to each other, sharing its ideas. It's as if they've been waiting for something to awaken in them. And now, with the power of these words, that awakening is happening. But let's take a moment to reflect on the quiet power of this movement. The revolution that Marx and Engels envisioned is not loud, not immediate, and not without its struggles. It is slow, like a plant pushing through the soil. But with every word that spreads, every worker who reads the manifesto and feels its promise, it becomes stronger. The workers, those who have been toiling in silence for so long, are now speaking out. And they are doing so not with violence, not with rage, but with the quiet conviction that they deserve more. They deserve a better life. They deserve a life where they are not controlled by the whims of the rich, where they are not seen as tools for the benefit of others. Back in the small study, Marx and Engels are still working, still writing. But now the work feels different. It's no longer just an idea. It's a living thing. And as they write, they can feel it, just as the people in the streets can feel it, that something is about to shift. The winds of revolution are beginning to blow, and they are soft at first, almost like a breeze that you barely notice. But with each passing day, that breeze grows stronger until it is undeniable. Imagine feeling that power, that certainty, growing within you. It must have been a strange, exhilarating time for Marx and Engels, to know that their words were not just passing through the world, they were changing it, gently but profoundly. And as the revolution begins to take root, their vision begins to take shape. The promise of a better future is not just a dream anymore. It's a possibility, a quiet reality that is slowly coming into focus. So take a deep breath once more, my friends, and let the weight of this chapter settle gently into your mind. The workers are awakening, the manifesto is spreading, and the winds of revolution are beginning to stir. We've seen the quiet beginning, and now, in the stillness of the moment, we feel the weight of what is to come. Let's move forward slowly as the revolution grows in the hearts of the people, and feel the power of these quiet, determined movements as they begin to change the world, one small step at a time. Good evening once again, friends. As we approach the final chapter of our journey tonight, I invite you to take a deep breath, letting the warmth of your surroundings wrap you up like a soft blanket. Feel the weight of the day slip from your shoulders as you settle deeper into the peaceful embrace of this moment. Outside, the world may be bustling, rushing forward as it always does. But in here, within this quiet, there's nothing to do but listen to the gentle unfolding of time. Take another breath, in and out. Let the stillness guide you gently through the last part of this story. We've traveled far already, through the thoughts of two men in a quiet room, through the whispers of revolution, and now we find ourselves standing at the edge of something that has already begun to change the world. It is the year 1849. The streets of Europe are no longer quiet. The winds of revolution are no longer whispers. They are louder now, growing with every passing day. But the revolution, despite its promise, is still not what anyone expected. It's still not loud and chaotic in the way one might imagine. No, this revolution is slow. It's quiet. It's growing from the ground up, in the hearts and minds of people who are beginning to understand that change is not just possible, it's inevitable. Imagine yourself once again in a small room, like the one where Marx and Engels sat. surrounded by the same flickering candlelight and the same soft, crackling fire. The two of them, once so certain of the power of their words, now sit with a certain sense of quiet reflection. They've seen their manifesto spread. They've seen the stirrings of revolution in the streets. But it's not the overwhelming, immediate change they had envisioned. No, it's something much slower, something more enduring, like the steady erosion of a cliff face over time, carving away at the stone until eventually the landscape is forever altered. The workers are still fighting, still striving for a better life, but the world they live in is not ready to embrace the changes Marx and Engels dreamed of. And yet, there is something undeniable about the impact of their words. The ideas they planted, like seeds in the ground, have taken root. They are not the towering oaks of revolution just yet, but they are small shoots, growing ever so slightly each day. It's almost as if time itself has begun to move differently in this moment. What once seemed impossible now feels like it's on the horizon, waiting to take shape. Imagine, if you can, what it would be like to sit with them in that room, as they reflect on what their manifesto has already set in motion. There's no grand victory yet, no explosion of change, but the world has shifted. People are thinking differently. They are dreaming of a future that is fairer, more just. They are beginning to see their own power in a new way. It's as if the ground is trembling beneath them, just the slightest vibration, a sign that something much larger is beginning to stir. But let's not forget the quiet struggle. The revolution that Marx and Engels envisioned was never going to be easy. It was never going to happen overnight. It was always about changing hearts and minds, slowly and persistently. It's like planting a garden. You don't see the fruits of your labor immediately, but you trust in the process, you trust in the soil, and you trust that one day the seeds will bloom. That's what Marx and Engels had done. They had planted those seeds, and in the years that followed, those seeds would continue to grow. The echoes of the manifesto would reverberate through history, inspiring revolutions across the world, sparking ideas of equality and justice in places far beyond Europe. It wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always successful in the way they had hoped, but the seeds of change had been planted, and they would continue to grow, whether the world was ready for them or not. Now, as we leave this quiet study behind, let's imagine that we've come full circle. We've seen how a small, quiet idea, a whisper really, can begin to ripple outward, touching the lives of people far and wide. We've seen how one revolution, one manifesto, can change the course of history, not by a sudden burst of noise, but by the quiet persistence of those who dare to imagine something different. Feel that sense of quiet accomplishment, friends. The world may have changed slowly, but it has changed, and the echoes of that change continue to reverberate today in ways we may not always see or understand. The workers who read Marx and Engels, the ones who carried their ideas forward, may not have known exactly what the future would hold, but they knew deep in their hearts that something had to be different. So as we gently leave this story behind, let's take a moment to reflect. In our own lives, we too carry the seeds of change. We too have the ability to dream, to imagine, and to act, even if the fruits of our labor take time to grow. Like Marx and Engels, we plant those ideas in the quiet moments, knowing that even if we don't see the full bloom, the world is still being shaped by our efforts. And as you settle into your space tonight, let these thoughts carry you gently into rest. Feel the quiet strength of those who dared to change the world with nothing more than their words. Let that quiet revolution settle into your heart, and may it inspire you to dream of a world where change is possible, where we all have the power to shape the future. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful journey through history, friends. May these memories guide you into peaceful dreams. If this story helped you unwind tonight, let me know below. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you soon. Good night.